Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live webinar hosted by ARES PRISM Project Control Software and LoadSpring Cloud Solutions. All lines are muted to prevent background noise. However, if you do have a question at any time throughout the presentation, feel free to submit your questions by selecting the Q&A icon in the menu. At the end of the meeting, we'll go through all of the questions submitted. And finally, this meeting is being recorded and will be sent out to all registrants after the webinar is complete. So our agenda today includes why project organizations need hosted project control software. We'll talk about the importance of eliminating spreadsheets, integrating cost and schedule, earned value management, change management, and project management maturity. And we'll also discuss the benefits of transitioning your projects from on-premise to the cloud and the IT-related questions that you can ask your team, the pros and cons of using on-premise versus the cloud, and then what sets apart the different cloud solution offerings. So with that, I would like to introduce our first presenter, Russ Stevens, who is the Senior Solutions Analyst at ARES PRISM. He has over 25 years of experience in project management and cost management, and he helps organizations learn ways to improve their processes. Russ has worked previously with several large companies to strategically implement project management and improve business process automation. So with that, I'd like to introduce Russ Stevens.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming today. What we're going to start with is we're going to look at the project management maturity model and where the companies may or may not fall within that model. So what we're going to start with, the main reasons for why project organizations need hosted project control software is that it'll help them improve their project management maturity level. Looking at the 5 levels of project management maturity, level 1 is the initial process. It's the lowest level of maturity. Processes typically are extremely poorly defined, and it's a very reactive environment. And often things only get done when absolutely necessary. Organizations at this level have little or no project controls in place. Level 2 is where you start to have structured processes and standards. Once the organization reaches the level 2 maturity, processes begin to get documented and are more structured. Controls may begin to be implemented, but they're still pretty much in a reactive nature. Often individual managers and teams start coming up with their own processes and standards, but it's mostly in isolation, which can result in a great deal of variation across the business. Hopefully by level 3 of maturity, you're starting to see company-wide processes and standards being implemented. What you're getting hopefully is consistent and repeatable processes, which can be found. Some organizations at this level will start focusing on collecting project data by championing proactive approaches to project management and project controls. One of the most important things, in my view, is the common coding structures. And that's whenever you get the majority of the data looking the same, in the same format, and it's mostly driven by financial systems. Once you get to level 4, companies need to start integrating their project management and project controls processes with overall corporate processes. At this stage, alignment has been achieved between the organization strategy and the individual project goals and processes. Organizational estimates may exist at this point, and the project data can be collected and used to analyze project performance against these estimates. And very importantly is you can use all of this information against industry standards. Here the emphasis is placed on accurately measuring and controlling project performance. And finally, we have the greatest level of project management maturity, which we'd all like to attain. At this level, processes have been achieved, standardization throughout the organization has been achieved, and the focus is on continual process improvement and on using industry and organizational best practices to enhance project performance. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a poll. So self-assessment, which project management maturity level do you think you're at, that you're currently at? Number one, initial processes. Number two, structured processes. Three, organizational standards level. Four, managed processes. Or five, optimized processes. Please make your votes now. Okay, so the results are, we have 21% level one initial processes. Level two structured processes, we also have 21%. Level three, we have organizational standards level, also at 21%. And managed processes at level four, we have 29%. And optimized processes, we have one, or one company, so we're at 7% on that. Thanks for giving us that input. So now I'd like to go a little bit into eliminating spreadsheets. Excel is always the first choice of project management, it seems, and little has changed over the 25 years I've been doing this. When it comes to project management, Excel spreadsheets are one of the most popular tools on the market. It comes included in your Microsoft Office license and is flexible enough to create highly specific functions from scratch. It's free, easy to use, involving minimal training, and often, and here's the issue, it doesn't require strict processes or procedures to be put into place. It has quick adoption, it's a cheap tool, and poof, just like that, you're managing a project. So what's the catch? While spreadsheets can be powerful, they come loaded with an inherent risk of error and tend to become complicated and unmanageable as projects grow. Study after study have provided evidence that most spreadsheets are likely to contain quite a few errors, and the way they calculate through the formulas, it's fairly unregulated. There are also security issues, and it's very difficult keeping version control. You don't know where your spreadsheets are going, who's changing things, and who has the latest and greatest. Plus, there's a resource dependency. What happens when your Excel guru decides to change jobs or goes to another company? What do you do? And it is a big issue. While it may be possible to manage simple projects using Excel, it doesn't scale very well to larger projects. Using spreadsheets, cost managers can develop project costs, worksheets, import actual costs from accounting, and they manually enter progress information. While this is somewhat practical on one simple project, it doesn't scale effectively. The more information being entered, the more complicated a spreadsheet becomes. In order to improve productivity, it's a best practice to reduce dependency on spreadsheets. By implementing a project-controlled software tool, you can allow to have validation checks for data accuracy, and you can have confidence in your data that you're looking at. Now, using Excel also means that reports will likely not follow a consistent format. Consistent reports make it easier for project managers to quickly understand the data and make decisions accordingly. Utilizing a project management system will help you mitigate the risk of using spreadsheets while also strategically setting you up for project success. Lots of organizations spend sometimes between 50 and 80% of their time just collecting and validating data within Excel. So imagine what can be accomplished when you reduce manual data entry. You can spend your time actually analyzing the data and making timely strategic decisions. Make sure that your organization is aligned to achieve greatness by moving away from Excel, and it'll help you complete project lifecycle management solutions. So in the real world, and this is actually a company that I have some background with. I've changed the names of the company and the people involved to protect the innocent, but it was a top 25 engineering and design firm. They managed multiple billion-dollar projects, that's billion with a B, and they did it with Excel. and no animals were harmed in the making of this example. So this company managed around 12 major capital projects. They managed and reported to senior management using Excel. And it was a single individual responsible for designing, creating, running, and managing the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet was compiled from data from each project into one central spreadsheet, so there was no single source of truth. Absolutely no real-time data repository. Between all 12 major capital projects, there were no standard metrics. And since it was a spreadsheet, there was no historical audit of changes. So it ended up being a massive Excel spreadsheet compiling huge quantities of data. And it was not a standard format between individual projects. Also, all the projects were multi-country, multi-currency projects at different stages of design and build. The Excel spreadsheet was not directly tied to schedules. Each project manager handled their own schedule separately. There was no corporate standard structures, and there was no connection to corporate financial system. There was a third-party audit of the master spreadsheet, and the size of the spreadsheet made Excel unstable and was prone to crashing. It crashed multiple times during each day. It had multiple sheets, lookup tables, lots of behind-the-scenes calculations. The rounding had inconsistencies, and some of the rounding errors could almost be at $1 million. There was lack of change control documentation, or I would say there's no change control documentation. There were no common data structures, and there was quite a bit of data manipulation errors. Realistically, it wasn't auditable with just rounding errors, as I said, in millions of US dollars. And this Excel spreadsheet, this wasn't a one-time thing. This evolved over more than a decade. It had grown and morphed and changed quite a bit over time. The end of the month status reporting for upper management was often up to 2 months out of date, and it would be presented as current. Reports were viewed internally as not really reliable to make ongoing business decisions. So the corporation looked for an enterprise level, globally accessible, centralized repository with integrated project schedules, cost, and accounting. The solution that was proposed provided project standard metrics, project management consistency, reporting, and change management. What was the result? The company evaluated multiple industry solutions. They identified minimum cross-project standards. These are all great things. They exposed the inconsistencies and the problems in the current system, which was Excel. And but unfortunately, due to an industry downturn, a few things happened. The project management office, the PMO, with all the standards, the undertaking was deemed too expensive at the time. And the single individual who created the Excel spreadsheet, he was given early retirement package and was reduced as headcount as a reduction of cost. Within less than a year, the Excel spreadsheet was completely unusable. The amount of manual upkeep behind the scenes wasn't really known, and it wasn't done, and the people who were put in charge of it didn't really know what to do. So that single individual who controlled the spreadsheet was called back, and that single individual created a consulting company consisting of only himself. And the consulting company came in and ran and managed and maintained the same Excel spreadsheet for another 5 years at a much higher rate, 5 times the cost of the individual person that was managing it now that he's a consulting company. The overall cost of implementing a cloud-based, integrated, standardized, and auditable single source of truth solution ended up being a fraction of what was paid to the consulting company. The consulting company is no longer in business, and the single individual who was part of that consulting company is very happily retired. And he walked away with 5 to 6 times the amount that was in his retirement package whenever he originally left the company. That company was acquired, was merged and integrated and consumed, and is no longer its own entity. So the real question is, what's the real cost of not having a central single source of truth repository? And what's the cost of it not being accessible corporate wide and having corporate standards? And more importantly, what's the real cost of Excel? So another important thing is integrating cost and schedule. Whenever you integrate cost and schedule, you can have one or the other, but if you put them both together, you create a time-phased budget instead of a cost-loaded schedule. You can roll up and categorize relevant project metrics. And very importantly, you can show an auditable and time-phased decision process. You can manage your budgets, you can track changes to those budgets and see trends. You can also, if there's contingency, you can manage your contingency and see how it changes over time. And you can also see how change will affect the overall enterprise. You can also do forecasting of future expenditures and financial trends. And forecasting, you can also use old projects as templates to create new projects, so you have a better idea of where you're going to be. Also, report project processes based upon industry standards and earned value practices. Very important, and we really can't do that unless you have standard metrics to base that on. And you also have flexible cost spreading based upon project functions. If you're in purchasing, or if you're in engineering, or if you're in project management, you might want to spread that cost differently over time. So earned value management, it's a project management technique for measuring project performance. ARES PRISM is an earned value management system, and we help organize and find variances in projects based upon the comparison of work performed and work planned. Most importantly, it's an early warning system. It's not something you look at the end of the project and say, wow, we really should have done something differently. This is something that you use real time. This means that the project's performance and productivity issues can be identified very early in the project's life cycle, and significant cost and schedule variances are detectable when the planned work has reached as little as 10% completion on any portion of the project. You can do course corrections, and that's part of the overall EVMS process, is to determine the cause of performance issues in order to develop a corrective action plan. And it's easier to make these corrections when you see them early. And it's also management by exception. A project managed at a control account or work package level allows management to easily identify the accounts with performance problems. Management can then focus its efforts on correcting those areas. And more importantly, if there's something that's going well, you don't have to look at it as much. Keep your eye on it and just make sure that they're doing the right thing. We do conform to the AACE, American Association of Cost Engineers, international recommended practices. Those do change over time, and we do keep up with those. More importantly, earned value management, it's a communication tool. This is all about communication. And communication is stifled when projects are hidden, such as in Excel. It usually backfires, and there's expectations that sometimes problems will sometimes fix themselves. They normally don't. An earned value management system, again, is a communication tool that helps everyone associated with the project understand the answers to the important project management questions. So change management, I've talked quite a bit about it in the earlier slides. And one of the big failings of managing by Excel is you can't see the change management because the Excel spreadsheets are simple points in time. Where are you now? And you almost don't see where you've come from. Change management runs through every aspect of the process, project, or business. If proper communication and standardizations are not implemented throughout the entire organization, change management can fail. And that causes projects to fail along with it. It can be difficult to successfully implement the golden thread of change management without the necessary people, processes, and I feel the technology that you need to have in place. The problem is that the majority of organizations are trying to use the Excel spreadsheets as their mechanism for tracking and managing change. And when it comes to project management, spreadsheets have two major failings. First, they don't accurately reflect the complexity that change can have on medium to large projects. And secondly, they're unable to provide the big picture and historical context of change, as well as the knock-on effects to other systems or aspects of the projects. Without a strong change tracking capability that can fully integrate with other systems, it's also impossible to take those impact assessments and turn them into what could be coming down the golden thread through the project. That golden thread can be followed from its current position all the way back through all the change efforts and throughout the projects. Spreadsheets are often like a leaf at the end of a branch. They're at the end of the line and they don't feed back to the other systems. The information contained within them does not go anywhere. It just drops off. When its job is done, it just falls away. And the history of that leaf is gone and a new leaf emerges. If the people are not engaged and the process is not sound, the system won't work. The change management processes that are there need to help map into the organizational structure and to be the underpinning of the systems or application. Structured change management processes and procedures are imperative for the success of a project and an organization. So in summary, the reason we're doing this, why are we doing this? Implementing project control software, these are a lot of different reasons. And I would ask the questions, what are the most important things that your organization are looking for? Is it data integrity? Is it, schedule with integration and cost? Are you trying to improve yourself on the maturity life cycle? Are you trying to eliminate the spreadsheets? Are you trying to help you do better reporting? Are you trying to do better earned value? So which benefits would be most advantageous to your organization right now? Would you like to improve project management maturity? Reduce use of spreadsheets? Would you like to have integration using cost and schedule? Utilizing earned value management? Improving change and management processes? Or other? Give you guys a few moments to go over that. Okay, we have the results. So the benefits that would be most advantageous to your organization right now, improving project management maturity, 13%. Reducing the use of spreadsheets is our clear winner at 31%. Integrating cost and schedule, 25%, very important. 6% utilizing earned value management. I think once you reduce the use of spreadsheets and the integrating cost and schedule, earned value will make a much bigger impact then. Also, improving change management processes, again at 6%, and other is 19%. Thanks for participating in the poll. So the big question, why hosted? Why host project control software? Well, hosting software helps remote access. You can get at your data from wherever you are, be it nationwide, worldwide, in the field. It's one access point for all applications, whatever your job function is. And you also get centralized IT support. and quite a bit more. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Dean, and he can go in far more detail on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Russ. Really appreciate that.
All right, I'll go ahead and introduce our second speaker, Dean Edmondson, who is our Chief Strategy Officer at LoadSpring Solutions. Prior to coming to LoadSpring, Dean held senior executive business development roles at ARES Project Management, GOI, Oracle Primavera, and he brings to the team over 30 years of experience delivering software and project management solutions to global organizations. He recently was the CEO of Saffron Americas, where he positioned the company for significant and scalable growth. And one of the highlights in Dean's career was developing the alliance with Oracle, leading up to the Oracle's acquisition of Primavera. His experience will enable LoadSpring to provide complete solutions to meet the unique business needs of its customers. So I'll hand it over to you, Dean.
Thanks, Tiffany, and thank you, Russ, for presenting the overview of project control systems. There's a lot of interesting points there. Some of the points we'll definitely touch on as we talk a little bit more about the hosting of the different solutions. So as we move through to the next slide, what we'll spend a lot of time on today is covering the 7 points of why you want to consider hosting. But to start with the 7 points, you really need to ask yourself, and we work with a lot of our customers and clients to understand where they're at on the cloud transformation journey. And over the past 20, almost 21 years now, we've been able to assess and put together a maturity scale of where customers are in this journey. There's really 3 levels: entry level, cloud aware, and enterprise. And each of these levels brings a different level of requirement or a different level of understanding of what it takes to get to the cloud. And if your line of business and you're not IT, don't worry about which level you're in today, but just know that ARES and LoadSpring as a team work together to help you guys understand where you're at and make sure that we bring forward the right set of solutions so that you can access your tools no matter where you're at the performance level you expect, with the interoperability across different applications that you expect. I'll highlight a couple key differentiators. Entry level, they just want to get to the cloud, and they're just looking for different ways to get to the cloud. And it might mean that you're already thinking about LoadSpring or AWS, Azure, or other cloud options, but you're just beginning to do that. And it doesn't really matter what size organization you are. There's no direct correlation with a large enterprise size organization. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation and a small 10-man shop. That doesn't mean that the enterprise organization cannot be entry level. We work with a lot of enterprise organizations that are entry level, that are cloud aware, and some that are enterprise. And we work with some very small organizations that are enterprise in their thinking. So again, there's no correlation to the size of organization. A lot of it has to do with your your internal IT strategy, how you want to embrace the cloud, how you look to deleverage the current situation where you're paying for all the hosted components and all the servers and the upkeep of those same things, and moving them from more of a CapEx operation side to an OpEx side of the house where it's all hosted in the cloud. So I know we're going to move on to a poll question here because I want to get a sense of where you're all at from a cloud maturity standpoint. And I'm going to do the same as Russ. I'm going to ask some poll questions along the way. And this is going to help inform my direction because there's a lot of things that we can talk about. And while there are 7 elements that I want to address today, I want to focus in on the ones that are most impactful for you. So in this first question, self-assessment, which cloud maturity level do you think your organization is currently at? Entry level, where you're just beginning; cloud aware, where you might have a couple different types of clouds, but you don't have a coalesced strategy across the organization; or enterprise. That you're focused on getting to the cloud, and here's how you move different applications to different types of clouds depending on the end user requirements. So please take a few minutes, submit your results there, and then we will cover off on this. All right, so that's exactly what I expected. A little heavier than I expected on the cloud aware, but I did expect cloud aware to be high. probably greater than 50%. 78%, that's really good. So that, in essence, entry level, we have 17%, cloud aware, we have 78%, enterprise, we have 6%. And in our experience here, cloud aware is where we see the majority of our customers, where they do have a couple different cloud solutions. They're trying to move on from on-premise to the cloud, maybe to SaaS, maybe to software as a service, or infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service. So that's good. That's what I expected, and that helps form the next part of our discussion here. So these are the 7 points that I want to cover today to help you as you discuss with your IT team. If you're not IT, if you're not a line of business leader, these are important for your organization, and it's important that we see when we're working with different organizations to make sure line of business and IT is always aligned, because you're the end customer as a line of business. You care about performance, you care about uptime, you care about getting the return on investment that you put out for whatever applications that you're using to deliver projects on time and within budget. And then IT cares about you because you're their customer. So these 7 bullets really line up well with that cross-pollination between IT and line of business. Security, everyone in the organization cares about that. We'll talk about that briefly. Cloud architecture, which is best. One access point, one common platform. Application performance, line of business won't adopt solutions without that, so we'll talk about that. Centralized IT support, it doesn't matter which application you get into, which hosting provider you get into, there's always going to be an opportunity for support. We'll talk a little bit about how we take care of that. And the rationalization, making sure you have the right applications, the right user base, the right architecture and support of it. And finally, we'll talk about access to application data. So if we go to the next slide, security being the #1 priority, what I will share with you is that there are a number of ways, and we're seeing it today, particularly with the transformation of more and more people working from home, and a lot of these different applications like CrowdStrike and others who secure our environments. We're seeing that becoming more and more predominant in the marketplace, where nefarious actors are trying to get in. They're trying to get in through whatever types of cracks might be in that firewall when you work from home, or that VPN. And what we do at LoadSpring is we have 8 steps to mitigate any security vulnerabilities. We have never had a breach from a nefarious actor because we're precious about this. That wouldn't bode well for your organization, and we never want any of our customers to be put in a situation where their data is being held hostage. So I won't go through all 8 of these, but just know that we do have a zero trust networking environment. Our platform is proprietary in the way that it's set up, multiple firewalls, and we do actual pen testing of the application, so that not only are we testing the environment or making sure that the environment that we're putting forward for your organization to host these applications is secure, but we're looking at the applications that we host, and we're pen testing those applications to determine if there's some weakness in the application and where that might exist, and we're feeding that back to our application partners and letting them know that, hey, there's some weakness here. We're going to secure that through the LoadSpring platform, but you probably want to address this in future releases. So there's a number of steps that we take here, and you'll hear throughout this presentation today that we are very collaborative in how we go to market. We need to work with partners like ARES, and it's important for us and ARES to be aligned, as well as it is for us to be aligned with the end customer, because that's ultimately how we capture the end customer's goal. There is never any finger pointing one way or the other. There's always a level of collaboration between us, the customer, and our partner. I'd like to learn a little bit about your role in the organization to help inform how we talk about the second slide. So if you could quickly just let me know if you're in the project control side of the house or the IT side of the house, that'll help us. And I'm going to Nostradamus this a little bit and prognosticate that the majority of the people here are probably in project controls. I don't want to go too far to suggest I want to know the percentage, but we'll see here when Tiffany publishes this what the actual percentage looks like. Wow, a little bit higher than I was guessing, actually a lot. 89% of you are in project controls, 11% of you are in IT. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really important that project controls, line of business, IT work collaboratively, and we, as an organization with ARES, work collaboratively with you guys to understand both the end user as well as the organizational IT requirements for any solutions that we deploy. So let's go to the next slide, and this really helps to summarize. Excuse me. When your line of business and IT, and you're looking at, I have an on-premise solution, and that's the first dark blue set of criteria or category that you see here. And on the left-hand side, you can see the business value for each of these. And where you see a blue box filled in, that means that it's checking off, if you will, that business value. So on-premise delivers a lot of business value. There are some gaps, however, with an on-premise solution. And most organizations, what they try to do when they're thinking about their cloud transformation strategy is they try to go quickly from on-premise to software as a service. And notice the gaps, i.e. the white, when you're going from on-premise to software as a service. There's a lot of points of differentiation that you have to go through as an organization to consider a software as a service solution. You have to consider, do I have access to the data on the back end? If I have access to the data, do I have complete access to the data? Because data is king. At the end of the day, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, like content is king with Hulu and Netflix and Disney Plus, data is king for all of our customers. They want to be able to take that data and generate actionable intelligence from it in many different ways. So that's one of the first questions you need to ask is, do I have access to data? The second question is, does the software as a service solution have the same level of parity, i.e. functionality, that my current on-premise or client server solution has? And usually those two questions begin to ferret out very quickly the option of going to software as a service. And then there's a list of other different types of questions on this decision support matrix that we provide that we find it's very helpful for line of business and IT when they're going through that process of identifying, if I'm going to the cloud, how am I going to get to the cloud? Is it SaaS? Is it infrastructure as a service where maybe we have a contract with one of the hyperscale providers and the hyperscale provider is suggesting, or our IT department is suggesting that we can upload all of this into Azure AWS, and what do we gain from that? Or should we consider a platform as a service solution? A platform as a service solution, i.e. LoadSpring, would be something that's very different than a hyperscale provider in that we provide all the architecture as well as all the managed services. So these are applications where you are going to upgrade those applications. They have patches. You need skill sets in the organization that are disciplined around these specific applications, and you need to hire for that. And do you as an organization want to do it? And you begin asking these questions and you begin assessing very quickly as I go from on-premise to the other options, which options best fit us and best fit the community of users that are going to be participating in these applications. So this is something that Tiffany will talk about at the end that we're more than willing to share with others. And we're happy to share it in a different Excel format so that you can make it into your own transformational architecture as you go forward. You want to move to the next slide, Tiffany? This is the other thing that that it ties back to that previous slide as you're going through that cloud transformation, the decision support matrix. The organizations that we deal with, they're all really solid, good organizations from an IT line of business perspective. They have a lot of work to do, and you begin to ask the question, what work can we be effective at? What's core to our business? And it's always HR, financial, and CRM within the IT group. IT groups need to really own that because there's a lot of customization. There's a lot of users in that broader community. And these are things that they tend to hire well for. It's the other solutions, the project management solutions that are on the periphery where you have project participants from subcontractors, from owner-operators, from your own indigenous employees, where you begin to say, well, how can I hire internally all the different people required to support the estimating, scheduling, geospatial, contract management, CAD, BIM, and the list goes on. And as those applications change for every project requirement, I am using one application for this project, but then the next project comes in and requires me to use a different application. How do I morph and stay ahead of that curve? IT is constantly asking themselves that question, because you, line of business, you're their customer and they care about serving you. We support IT. So that's the gray space here is us supporting core IT and extending the capability out to the line of business group so that you have access to the applications you need. You get the upgrades when you expect them. We keep the projects paramount, and the projects paramount mean that the upgrades happen when you want them to happen, or if you need to stay on multiple versions of an application because you have multiple projects in flight. All of these things are taken into consideration, and we're able to satisfy that. And we do that because this is all we do. The right side of this equation, the gray side of the equation here, is the only thing that we focused on as an organization for the past 20 years, and we have literally hundreds of years of expertise across these different applications to support them. So it becomes a natural fit, if you will, for us to work collaboratively with your core IT department to deliver a better end user experience to you, the line of business owner, so that you can, again, deliver the project on time and within budget. We go to the next slide. I'm going to weed through these pretty quickly, but this is just to give you a sense of confidence that when we say we're going to deliver managed services, it's more than upgrades. We're actually monitoring the infrastructure. We care about how our infrastructure is performing for you. We're monitoring the application. You're at the right pace. We're monitoring the application to make sure that the application is performing the way you expected. Make sure that response time is seconds, not minutes, and literally sometimes tenths of a second when you hit a functional key. And then we're also monitoring the user experience. So the user experiences can come in so many different flavors from different parts of the world through different ISPs, and we're looking at all of those things to make sure, again, that you as the end customer, the line of business team, is having a really rich experience in the application, and it's a timely experience, and you're not waiting for things to load. And then finally, we also look at SOPs. So we look at your standard operating procedures and make sure that the way you're operating, let's say on the east, is similar to the west, or maybe dissimilar, and then we're pulling different learned lessons from one organization and sharing them with the other, because there's all types of things that we can do as an organization, especially when we have disparate P&L groups and people trying to roll out enterprise, but actually not leveraging best practices enterprise-wide that we can identify in the system with organizations like ARES across your application, across your infrastructure, to deliver you a better overall user experience. So it's not as simple as just throwing it up in the cloud from our perspective. There are a lot of things that we do behind that to make sure that your user experience is the best experience that you can have in those applications. And we're always mitigating risks. We're always looking for trends that suggest that your experience or your response time is could get slower if we don't improve RAM, if we don't improve CPU, if we don't, help you with some of the SOP initiatives or trends that we're seeing in the wrong direction. So that's a big aspect of it. And to kind of roll all of those things into, okay, how do we handle support? We try to minimize the amount of time you need to spend on the support line with us, because we're always prognosticating and looking forward to what could happen, mitigating the risk before it does happen. But inevitably, entropy exists. All things will tend to the greatest possible disorder, and when things do exist and pop up, hey, we're ready to help you. We can integrate with your service desk applications like ServiceNow, BNC, or you can just leverage the LoadSpring platform. Innate within the LoadSpring platform is a support platform where we have a knowledge base, and we respond to all of our customers within 15 minutes. And then we work through Sub 1, Sub 2, Sub 3 type environments to make sure that those response times are in compliance with our contractual agreement with you. Then the sixth topic is IT rationalization. Our customers are uber precious about this. So when they make an investment in a software application, they first want to make sure that the software application aligns with their standard operating procedures, which is great. And then it's all rolled out and configured that way. And then adoption quickly follows. So if they buy 100 licenses of ARES PRISM, they want to make sure that there's 100 users out there in the system. We track the usage of the software, and then we help both ARES and the end customer identify opportunities where there are training opportunities where maybe somebody has access, but they're not in the software because they weren't trained, because they need more training or whatever it is. But we work to get you to that 100% return on investment across the organization, and we'll monitor that over time and over a period. And we expect some vagaries in the market because you'll have projects coming on, projects going off, people coming on and off. But just know that we normalize that curve and we share that with you through the platform so that you know that the investment's a good investment, the trained team is trained up in using it, the performance is good, there's no reason why adoption shouldn't happen. And I'll go off onto a slight tangent here and say, we help mitigate that valley of despair that most organizations go through when there's any kind of change that's placed upon them by putting these kind of advanced analytics in place for you. And if we go to the seventh slide here, so I talked early when you consider which applications you're going to go to or which platform, which cloud platform you're going to move applications to. One of the first things you want to consider is, do I have access to data? Data is king. And so what we're doing at LoadSpring and what we've been doing for a number of years now is we're making sure that you have access to the data that you need to generate the right actionable intelligence. We recognize that if you pull all these different applications on the left-hand side together, you're going to have a swamp. And if you don't know what data sets you really want to pull, if you don't have the functional expertise, which you should in-house, but you don't have the technical expertise lined up on the IT side of the house and functional expertise like a LoadSpring to help you pull that data into some world-class analytics, that could be a challenge. And so we're working a lot right now in this area. We're going to announce a partnership here in the next few weeks with one of the hyperscale providers where we're going to fast forward this track. They're really good at unstructured data. We're really good at structured data. And the combination of us and them coming together to deliver this to the marketplace is going to be bar none huge for the project management world, in that we're going to give you access to do different things with data and give you object-oriented environments. So it's a no-code kind of low-code. Actually, it's going to be a no-code experience. So you don't have to have technical expertise to figure out how do you synthesize all this data into the actionable intelligence that you need. We're going to do that for you. So look forward to that. I don't want to promise too much here, but over the next couple months, there's going to be a lot of talk about this, a lot of announcing around this, and we're going to identify a few key customers to help us define what that looks like across different industries. So if you're interested in being one of those, feel free to reach out to me. You can get my credentials on loadspring.com, and I'll be happy to talk to you about the same. So if we move to the next slide, what I'd like to do here and then in these next couple slides is kind of share with you how this all comes together. So Russ, did a great job of talking about project controls, project management, and how do you move from an immature Excel type of solution to a mature ARES PRISM type solution. And then I talked a little bit about, well, how do you now take this to the cloud to give the broader organization access to the tools they need? And this is how we deliver it together. So what you're seeing on the screen here is the ARES PRISM white labeled into the LoadSpring cloud. So this is the LoadSpring cloud. ARES has all the different applications on the left-hand side, plus we've added P6 and Project. And now you have one centralized location where you can double-click on any one of these applications, open it up, and begin operating from them. And if we go to the next slide, you can see the interoperability that we can create. So in this case, I have ARES G2 integrated with P6 to show an S-curve. So I've taken time phase data and schedule data, cost data, merge them together. So now you have the right SPI, CPI type curves, and you can quickly see this in the platform and make those type of go, no-go decisions. This is a This is just a tiny step in the direction of advanced analytics that I was talking about earlier, but this gives you an indication as to where we're going, and how you're going to be able to do more than just generate S-curves, but many other things like monitor subcontractors, monitor performance, monitor estimates, et cetera, et cetera. And if we go to the next slide, this is how. So everything that I shared here is, what we do for the organization, and we do it with a completely transparent environment. And what I mean by that is the LoadSpring environment is set up so that everything that we agree to in our master service agreement with the customer is outlined in the LoadSpring platform. So what you see here is the number of support cases in the upper left-hand side, the resolution time in minutes, how long it takes, what the average response time is, and what the thresholds are. So it's good that the blue is less than the red. It should be. What the survey responses are, and how many people have responded to those. Do we have any SLA incidents, average resolution days? Then there's a number of other data sets. This is what we could fit on one screen that we share with you. This is all dynamic, live in the platform, so that we and you are operating from the same hymn sheet. You know exactly where you're at, how we're working against the SLAs, whether we're in compliance, whether we're out of compliance. If entropy is hit and we're reacting to it and we're putting you back into a better situation, all that is live, it's dynamic, and it's available to you because we're 100% accountable to you. As I said earlier, your organization is charged with keeping projects paramount and delivering them on time and within budget. We're charged with making sure that all the risks associated with making sure that you have the right applications, the right versions of those applications, and you can perform in those applications are risk adjusted and mitigated. So we monitor it, we take that seriously. We monitor it from a security standpoint, from a performance standpoint, and every other aspect of what you would consider a positive type of experience. We consider all of those when we're doing this monitoring. Okay, this is the last poll question that I had. Do you believe having all project control applications in one centralized cloud makes your team more productive? So is it better to have, LoadSpring, Azure, AWS, on-premise, and all these other clouds with all these different locations, or is it better to have one central location that you can double click on an application, have it available, have it integrated and working? Yes. Oh, very nice. So 79% of the people responded yes, 5 responded no, and 16 are still unsure. So I appreciate you taking time to respond to that. And the last slide that I wanted to share with you is where we're doing this together with ARES today. So this is a sample set of some of the customers where ARES and LoadSpring are collectively working to deliver all those coalesced solutions that Russ and I talked about through the cloud. We're happy to add your logo to the list. We're happy to begin having discussions with you about whether it's appropriate for you guys, given your cloud maturity level, to begin to consider moving some of your ARES applications or maybe getting net new ARES applications in the cloud. Just let us know. Tiffany will share some of the next steps and call to action as we go forward.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dean, for your presentation on LoadSpring. And now is our time for question and answers. And just as a reminder, if you do have a question, we'd be happy to answer it. Just go ahead and submit your question through the Q&A icon down in the menu. So our first question is, will this webinar be available on demand? And I can go ahead and answer that one. Yes, it will be. We will be sending the live webinar recording out to all registrants following this webinar. Our second question is, how do I get involved with the cloud? If I'm a ARES PRISM customer, what are the next steps? What do I need to do?
I can help with that one. So if you're an ARES customer today, feel free to reach out to ARES. We work every day. Our teams are talking and collaborating with each other. You could be hosted in the ARES cloud direct because they have their own private cloud. If you know that you're hosted through LoadSpring today and you have your own LoadSpring cloud, feel free to reach out to us. Either way, we're going to collaborate with ARES to make sure that the solution you get is tuned for the best environment, the best experience that your organization should have. And when I say tuned, I mean right size. We don't want you to invest twice in the architecture, and we'll monitor that. We collaborate every day with ARES to make sure that new customers are added to existing architecture. They're not buying net new architecture, which is really important when you begin to consider the economy of scale and the cost per user over time.
Okay, and our next question is, can you show more screens or dashboards from PRISM, specifically cost control?
I do not have those in my slide deck right now. I can certainly get in touch with whoever would like them and send them in a email or also a demonstration if you'd like to schedule one.
Perfect. And let me just check to see if there's any other questions that have come in. We did receive a comment during your guys' presentation that said you're basically describing my day-to-day, and that was during your presentation, Russ. So I'm guessing that there's those who share the struggles that you were talking about earlier. Let's see if there's any other questions. I just don't want to leave any out. Okay, I think we are getting our last one in. First, thanks for the presentation. While we almost all of us agree that integrated data is one application, and one application makes the organization more productive, what is the average additional or marginal cost to have this integration?
I can take that, I think, and Russ, feel free to chime in here. This could go so many different directions. So I'm going to take my best approach to this. So let's just assume, I'll take an easy equation like the one I presented, that we're talking about P2 integrated with P6. And it's hosted through the LoadSpring environment. If you have 100 users of G2 and 100 users of P6, you want to pull that together so you can time phase the data and be able to generate the proper S curve as we showed. The cost is incremental to having that added to the environment. Let's just assume that the average cost per user, and this is just an assumption, is $25 per user. It's going to be less than 50 cents per user to have the integration available to that team. So, when you think about it that way, it's less than 50 cents per user. Now I can have all that automated. Now I can enter the data once and benefit from it many times over. I think that, that begins to paint the picture for, why it's important for the organization, and to Russ's point earlier, why it's important for you to have an application that you can trust and you can scale across the organization with standard operating procedures that carry from one group to the next.
Well, and I don't have any very specific cost associated with it, but really, what's the cost of not managing your projects in an integrated environment? We're talking about major capital projects here, multiple millions, sometimes billions of dollars, and one mistake or one oversight or one integration that you don't make could have incredible impacts to the project or even the company. That's a missed opportunity cost right there. Also, all of the additional time and effort just getting all this information together and spending your time getting everything together in a usable format, that time could be better spent in making better decisions at a corporate level of where we're going to go, what we're going to do in the future, rather than spending sometimes 50 to 80% of your time just to make a report that's sometimes outdated by the time it even comes out. I can't put a hard dollar to that, but I've seen companies that have had fully integrated project controls and cost control systems that are still very much viable and around today. And I've seen other ones that are ad hoc at best, and they either don't exist or being taken over by others. You know, it's the amount of effort and care that you put into it. I think that's important. And at the end of the day, having everything into a single repository, accessible by everyone real time, that's a single source of truth. And you can make better decisions off of that ultimately.
Okay, and I'll also add in one minor point, which Dean had mentioned P6 and the integration there. And just from an ARES PRISM perspective, we do already integrate with P6. That's out of the box. So just an additional point there that there's no additional fee for the integration with P6 when you're using the ARES PRISM application.
So that's a really good point, Tiffany. And I did some quick math because it's a tricky question, but I did some quick math to it. And depending on, you know, an average user size, it's around an 8%. If it's not something you already integrate to, it's around an 8% uplift per user to have the integration highway in place between us and whatever that other application is. So it's, I think
Thank you for doing that for us.
I think it's marginal.
Yeah. Okay, we have an additional question that came in regarding training on PRISM. And so I would, you know, finding out whether there is any training related to the software PRISM. And I can go ahead and answer that one as well. Yes, the answer is yes. And actually, we just introduced a new virtual training. Obviously, with everything that's going on with COVID-19, we've had to move to virtual, but this has really opened up the possibility for a lot more people to get trained. And our next training is in November. So if that is something that would interest you, go ahead and take a look at our website on the training page, and you can go ahead and register there. Okay, let me check and see if there's any other questions that have come in. It looks like we have answered all of them, which is great news. Well, I would just like to thank all of our attendees for coming here today to learn a little bit about hosted project control software. I would like to thank our presenters, Dean and Russ, for a wonderful job today. And as a reminder, this recording will be available. We will be following up with all of you with an email. So keep an eye out for that, because there will be some more information on next steps that you'll be able to take. And if you have any questions, you can certainly respond to that email, and we'd be happy to answer them there. And finally, let me go ahead and close with thanking you again. And here is the information if you do wish to contact us directly, information about our website, email, and phone number. And again, thank you for joining us today.